So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second session in the course Startup School of Schools. And this evening, in the second session, we are going to focus on one rather important thing, rather important aspect, which is pitching, mainly pitch deck, but also pitching in itself. And as you all know, at the end of this course, there is going to be the pitch competition for all the participants here. It's not mandatory, but I do suggest you do participate in it. So in order to be better during the pitch competition, I would say that this session is very important. Likewise, the pitch workshop, which we will have right before the pitch competition, that's also an important thing to attend. But yeah, today we are having the pitch deck session. So before we begin, before we move to the session, I do want to remind a couple of things. If you haven't yet joined the Slack workspace, I do hope that all of you have done that. If you haven't yet done that, in the email, you can find the link either in the just sent email about the session or in the welcome email. You can find the link to join our Slack workspace. There, I do post all the important information like Zoom links and tests and the recordings. And yeah, regarding tests and recordings, as you may have noticed already in the recordings or resources channel, you can already find the recording from the first session. And in the tests channel, you can already find the first test from which is regarding the first session we had. So as for the tests, as I've mentioned previously, as is written in the guidelines, you have until the 12th of December to fill them all out. So certainly no rush about that. But of course, I would sort of suggest to do them early. Who wants to leave all these, let's say, 6 tests for the very last minute? So yeah, that's just a suggestion from my side. But yeah, like I said, you can find it in the test channel, and at any point you can fill it out. It shouldn't take longer than, I think, 5, maximum 10 minutes, but really just 5 minutes to fill it out. And that's all. So regarding the session, as always, please, if you can, turn on your camera. It's always better for me and for the lecturer to see whom they're talking to. And the same sort of goes for the questions part. If you have any questions, you can use the chat and write the question there. But if you want to, you can raise your virtual hand, and then we will give you the floor to ask the question verbally. But that's in the sort of Q&A part of the session. As always, the first part is going to be the presentation, and then afterwards we are going to have the Q&A. And like I said previously, today we are going to focus on your pitch deck and pitching altogether. What should be included in the deck and the pitch, and how to perfect it, and basically how to sell your idea. And well, to begin the session, I would like to welcome our today's speaker, Zane Boyar, pitch coach and head of brand at Startup Wise Guys. Zane, you have all the attention.
Thanks for the intro, Pauls. Great to be here. It's the consecutive second year that I'm very happy that the TechHub Startup School of Schools is inviting me over. And a rumor had it that some of you already know something about pitching. So Pauls said that some people here already experienced and have met my colleague Egita from Startup Wise Guys. So if something is a repetition, well, either challenge me with questions or slide it over and just remind yourself about things that's worth knowing. As Paul said, I'm here with the kind of I can be with various hats. I'm a marketer with mostly public relations and stakeholder management background, also with a bit of like interest in branding. But I've been a big fan of training people for public speaking, and lately in the last 6 years, as I work as a startup accelerator, Startup Wise Guys, also training startups to do 3-minute pitches for investors. So that's, I have stopped counting. I probably have worked with something like 200 founders to date, as I sometimes do it also outside of the Startup Wise Guys Accelerator. And I'm also a very proud member of Riga Tech Girls community and NGO. My heart is definitely with the core team that is doing a big and amazing things to have more women in IT. And I see, at least in my view, I have at least one lady here. I guess there's more. Hi, Christine. And hearts out to anyone who's trying to enter this or have entered the world of IT and tech. We definitely need more female founders here. So super excited for that. I'm not going to go much deeper into my own personal story, but yeah, I am not only somebody that that kind of likes to talk about it. I'm actually quite often myself speaking in various circumstances. I've been on stage at Digital Freedom Festival, been doing things around TechChill, other tech conferences. For those of you who know, have led some panels, so I know how it's to be in the spotlight as well. And even though my friends in childhood were laughing that I was probably born speaking already, actually I still get stress. I still get sweat, and if we have enough time, very happy to talk about it towards the end of the session, how to manage your ego, how to manage your even breathing, how to manage your voice, because I truly believe that anyone, even the most introvert geek, can learn to speak well publicly. It doesn't mean you're going to become the most charismatic salesperson out there, but I do believe that you can deliver consistent, decent, good story. So here's my belief, and I believe so. Anyone who has doubts or has anxiety speaking with people, I do believe that with training, with practice, with managing yourself, you can do magic happen. But okay, today we have to talk about pitching. Before I start, I actually wanted to see whom I have. I see from the names that we have quite actually international crowd, mostly dominated by Latvians, as I see Jānis and similar names. If you would be nice enough with me and drop in the chat, where are you calling in from? Just to kind of see what's the geographic scope. We are okay, all right, USA. What's the time there? I have no idea. I'm calling in from Spain to add some geographic diversity, although I'm Latvian, and I'm coming to Riga this week. So I'm quite excited because I've been seeing sun a lot, so I'm almost missing a dark sky. You won't believe that, right? So,
Time in USA is 11 a.m. over here.
So it's not that bad.
No, not too bad. No.
Yeah, we sometimes good. Otherwise, we'd have like 2 a.m. face or something. That would be scared. Whoever is from Salisbury's, high five. I'm an original Salisbury's lady. As I said, it's the radiation that has helped me to do all of the good things, as there's actually a nuclear station there. For those of you who didn't know, random facts. Okay, I'll share my screen and I'll guide you through what we're going to do for the upcoming. I think I have 1.5 hours now, 1 hour and 20 minutes. I usually run out of time, and I always miss talking about the human aspect of pitching. So let's see how fast I go today. Let's see, Pauls, I will need your thumbs up when you see the slides.
Yes,
okay,
we do.
two thumbs up. That's great. Yep. So let's jump in, right? What's enough talking, more talking. So today I want to kind of walk you through quite generically kind of what is a pitch. For those of you who know it, this will be my version of it. So stick with me or challenge me, as I said. Then we're going to deep dive a lot into the anatomy of the 3-minute pitch. A disclaimer. I usually train on the investor facing pitch, not the customer or generic audience facing pitch. However, I do believe that the general kind of the anatomy or the structure is still quite relevant. And usually the pitch, that if you do it for more like generic audience that's not so numbers driven, you usually simply have a bit more time to talk about the story or talk about the problem and so on. So I do believe that this is still applicable, even though you might want to dismiss some very maybe investor facing specific numbers slides if you're not pitching to investors. And I hope that my internet connection will support me, and I would love to entertain you also with a few pitch examples. I'm going to take mostly TechChill pitch battle examples. So it's a startup competition, and I do have both online and on-site version, as right now world has changed so much that often the pitching is happening in a Zoom screen, not on a real stage, which for some is the best thing that can ever happen to them, and for some it's the worst. So we're going to look at different ones, and at that point I will also really want your interaction, as I will ask you a few questions. And for those of you who feel brave enough, I'll be very happy if you actually show your face and your voice. But for those who don't feel like, you'll be able to write it in chat. Before we jump forward, as Paul said, if you have any questions, I'm actually okay to address questions as we go, because sometimes that's the best way how to unlock maybe a deeper level of the content. You can write them in in chat. I'll try to follow it, and I will also stop a few times throughout the presentation. And if you have any questions about the topics we have covered, then that will be a good moment to ask them. Okay, I hope we're good. I'm very happy about emotions and human interaction generally. So do use chat, do use emojis, and let's rock and roll. So first of all, I would tend to think the majority of you actually know what the pitch is, right? I usually ask people actually to tell me what they are, but I'm not gonna do that for you. Usually the answer is that it's a super short and catchy company or product presentation, and actually the formats can be or the length of the presentation can be from, let's say, 60 seconds to 3 minutes, or sometimes a bit longer, but normally if it's longer than 5 minutes, I personally do not consider that a pitch anymore. I think it's just kind of like a longer format. Many of you might have heard about the so-called elevator pitch, or the idea is that pitch is a short format. If you happened to run into your the most desired client or investor, let's say in an elevator, you have to present yourself or your idea so quickly that you could do it while the elevator goes from one floor to another. I usually joke that in Latvia you would have to go to Swedbank or I don't know, Radisson Hotel, because the elevators don't go that far. We don't have that many skyscrapers. But fun fact, I do know a story from our own Startup Wise Guys investment portfolio, a company called Page that already exited. Ukrainian founders established in Poland. They did manage to get their investor on a flight. So it's true, it works in practice. And also those of you who are from the Latvian ecosystem might know Anatomy Next. That's also a startup that from our portfolio. We invested in them when I started working for Startup Wise Guys back in 2016. And they did get an investor at the so-called demo day. So a day when you pitch to the investors. So basically that day in that room. So it's not just a bullshit American format. It does work. And also, I would say that people's attention span nowadays is so short that youngsters, Gen Zs, probably would say that 3 minutes already is a lot. If you talk with the older generation, of course, everybody says, and it's not only generational factor, people would say, oh my God, it's impossible to say anything meaningful in 3 minutes, even worse in 60 seconds. And therefore, I think what is very, very important to understand about pitch, that it is not, let me tell you everything there is about my business and try to squeeze it in 3 minutes. That indeed is not possible, or it would be something rather bad in the execution. However, you can look at pitch as either, like I do love to see it as a way to open doors. So it's your way, how do you put your foot in a door of the audience that you want to get to? Or lately, actually, with audiences that are not from startup bubble, I really like the concept of a movie trailer. Your pitch is a trailer for your business or for your idea. And if you think back at movie trailer, everybody has watched trailers, right? Sometimes that's a whole entertainment on your own, like you can watch on Netflix like for an hour before you choose your movie, right? You would notice that usually there are even different trailers for different audiences, and the trailer is not, a good trailer actually is not a summary of the movie. Well, it shouldn't, that's not the purpose, right? It's a way how a movie is sold, and usually it is sold with some kind of assumption. Okay, let's sell the action, or let's sell the romantic story, or I don't know, let's sell the aesthetics of the movie, which is somehow specifically, I don't know, with Tuscany sun or something, right? So it is just a very, very short format. And what does it mean in terms of if it's just something to open doors or if it's a trailer for a movie? You have to cut out a lot. So you have to be very, very sure, actually, not even that much what you're going to include, but what you're going to exclude. And even when I see experienced startups pitching, they still struggle with this. And it's normal. If it's your idea, if it's your business, it's your baby, you want to tell everything about it, and everything seems important. But I say that it's crucial to figure out what is your winning strategy, or what is the ace. So what is this one card? If you had one card to use about your business or your idea, what would you use? And you can also look at it as what's the core message you would want the audience to get from your 3 minutes, or whichever other time format of your presentation. Yeah, and one more thing, sometimes it's a stage performance. I guess you're probably going to be pitching on Zoom, so it's less of that. But there is a lot of this culture of pitching in competitions. You can also see here a picture. It was, I think, last TechChill before COVID, if I'm not mistaken. So real humans on the stage. And these were two of our teams actually winning the pitch competition. And of course, some people say, meh, like when you have the stage performance, people are too excited about the theater part of the pitch and they're too little focused on the actual business or the conversation with the investors. That's true, but still pitch competitions are a really exciting thing to watch, and I'm going to show you some examples also of one of the guys that won this one. I guess this should be understandable. If anybody has any question, then drop it in the chat. I see some faces you're following, some faces I don't see. I hope you're there with me. Straightforward. Again, remember the door opener, movie trailer, and it's not you should not be aiming to squeeze everything that there is in 3 minutes, because it's not possible. Think of your winning strategy. Yeah, and here I got a little bit deeper for those of you maybe who have already been in the startup bubble, and you might be maybe looking at some pitch competitions as a way to get a bit more either some attention from future employees or from customers or from investors. I really like to kind of go deeper and basically you can ask yourself, as I said, what is your winning strategy? So how are you going to win? Just to give you an idea, there are some startups that, for example, know that, okay, they don't have the sexiest business idea, but they have extremely good numbers. For example, they have a lot of paying customers. So it would mean that they choose traction as their winning strategy instead of, let's say, developing super bombastic story around how the startup came to be. I'll show you one pitch example a bit later. For example, in that case, the startup still has it's building stuff for future market. So there's not that much to show right now. So they had taken a strategy to build this future facing pitch of like, oh my God, this is how the future is going to be. Do you want to be part of it? You know, creating a little bit of this FOMO effect. So that's a strategy they have chosen. Somebody might be, okay, we have a kick-ass, I don't know, sorry to the ladies, but I'll do this bullshit gender trick. We have a kick-ass, super cool female founder that we can put on a stage. Okay, fine. Like, I mean, whatever works, right? But you could go and slide with, okay, we have really, really good presentation, really good performance. So that's going to be our card. Of course, for me, coming from investor segment, I always say, build your business for your customers, not as a stage performance, not for investors. So of course, traction beats all, but it also depends what are the particular criteria. If you're really going into a competition, well, you have to know what are you going to be evaluated. And also here, I don't know if Pauls is going to, or anybody from the organizers is going to give you some prizes, but it definitely makes sense. Oh yeah, there's going to be prizes, good. But it does make sense to read the criteria. I mean, I don't know, of course it's a no-brainer, but I sometimes don't. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had read. They're actually going to be looking into experience about how the program has been as one of the criteria. Secondly, you definitely need to make sure that you know what is your actual goal to come to a competition. Sometimes startups, like for example, we would push our startups in the accelerator a lot, and we would say, just go and pitch. It's training, it's good. Maybe you find your investor. But let's say you might be looking for a technical co-founder. You might want to do the pitch a little bit differently. Or let's say you're looking for an advisor to join your advisory board, or you just want more people to know about your startup. So you literally want a random, like generic audience to remember you. Or you might be fundraising, which is usually the case with startups in an already later stage. So figure out what is your actual goal, because in a perfect world, you should adapt your pitch to that goal. And that, of course, comes together with also the second question, well, who's in the jury, who's the audience, whom are you actually pitching to? You might say, okay, I'm pitching on a stage at a tech conference and there's like 2,000 people. I have no idea who they are. Okay, but there might be this one person or these 10 people in the room that you actually want to address. And therefore, you might want to tailor either your story or complexity of your vocabulary, or for example, how much you use data or not, for example, towards any investor type of audience and kind of like juggle with it a bit. But of course, this is what I'm saying already to kind of more of advanced level startups, in case they're already on this kind of, they do use very consciously pitch competitions as to gain some kind of value out of it. And as I said, so what's your winning strategy? What's the ACE that you can use, and how do you compare to others, especially if you know already the lineup? For example, when our startups pitch together, we usually work with 10 startups at the same time throughout one program. And we even sometimes advise them, like, we know how others are like, okay, these ones are going to play on the traction. Why don't you play on the team and the experience? You know, kind of like also so the audience doesn't get bored listening to everyone the same. Okay, I'm going to jump forward because I'm not sure how relevant this is to you, as some of you might be in a very early stage, still just developing ideas or trying to understand if startups is something for you. So just a reminder, and that goes for any public speaking. It doesn't matter if it's pitching. It actually might be even when you're trying to deal with your kids or your parents or with your employees or with your boss. You have to know the audience and you have to know the goal. What do you want out of it? Because it will deeply impact how you're going to do it. The typical mistake that I see with technical founders is that they always opt for a very expert pitch. So their assumption is that their audience is extremely knowledgeable about their vocabulary, about examples, about potential clients, and so on. For example, we work with cybersecurity startups, and every time I feel like my brain has twisted in 3 knots when I have to work with them, because God knows I can't understand anything what they're trying to say because I'm not a cybersecurity expert. And then I say, okay, if you are absolutely sure that you're pitching to a pure cybersecurity expert audience, and you need only that audience to make some kind of decision or action, something, so that's the goal, that's fine. The moment you need something else, for example, I don't know, hire a marketeer, that might not be a great strategy because the person simply will not understand what the hell is this business. And if people don't understand, they're not excited to talk about it at home. They're not excited to share, and they generally might fade away, scroll their phone, and so on. So know the audience and know the goal. And very quick detour. I was working with one hackathon team, and they were like super technical logistics, robotics startup from Finland. And the guy was like, okay, listen, lady, like, great stuff. I don't believe you. Like, I don't care. I only need experts. And I don't want to I don't want to do for dummies version. This is complicated shit, right? And I was like, okay, but let me challenge you. And here's the challenge in our portfolio. So we invest in startups, and in our portfolio, the first exit happened in 2016. It was an Estonian agri-tech startup. And they exited to a large US corporation. And when the founder was asked to talk about his journey, it turned out that if he traced back the process, how this exit happened, and it turned out that there were like seven steps in that process. So kind of 7 touch points, how he met the person that ended up helping in the acquisition. And it turned out that one of these 7 steps was super random dinner in Swiss mountains, where he was seated at the table. First of all, he didn't want to go to that dinner. And secondly, he was seated next, I think, to a lady who happened to be the wife of the guy who later on was the one to whose company the startup exited. So if he wasn't able to explain his business so that the person not from agri-tech field, not from startup bubble, and not an investor, if she wouldn't understand, then that would have never happened, right? So say you might think that you always need to talk to experts, but I do believe in serendipity. And I do believe that actually, if you can pitch him in a very, very complicated thing in a very simple way, it will open doors and it will help you in life immensely. So I would say that is the ultimate holy grail. And trust me, it's coming from somebody that studied philosophy for 6 years. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm checking chat, but I don't see it. Pals, I guess I will need your help because I don't know why I don't see chat while I'm screen sharing.
There's no questions yet, but there is sort of one. You are using the word exit a lot. What does it mean?
Oh, okay. Thanks for asking. So exit means when a startup is acquired by another company. So basically, the original team that has created the company sell their shares to somebody else, and usually that is the ultimate goal where all of the startups are aiming at, because that would be the moment when you get money back from all of your work. Of course, some startups create their business for a very, very long term. So they actually might not be looking towards exiting from the company. I hope it explains. I'm not like a super expert on this, but yeah, like basically, if you say that, for example, from an investor perspective, so if I invest in a startup, I only usually get back my money when an exit happens. So when this company is bought. And for example, in the case of this Estonian company, the investment that we put as a fund in their company was brought back, I think something like 50 times, 50, which is quite a lot if you think of it. So actually the exit is something that investors would always be kind of looking forward to happen, because that's when their money comes back. Hope it explains. Keep on asking. I sometimes don't understand. Like, see, this is the part where I need to know my audience, that there's a lot of slang words in the startup bubble, but I'm out of startup bubble. I'm actually a social entrepreneur at heart and a master of philosophy by education. So I can definitely try to give you a simplified explanation of the startup bullshit vocabulary and not so bullshit vocabulary. Okay, I hope we are so far so good. So we know the audience and we know the goal. I'll stop sharing for a little bit just to look at your faces if you're with me and if you're alive. Okay. Yeah. Well, Sabine, yeah, it could be that there might be a different ultimate goal. For example, you could create a company where your ultimate goal is to really change something, right? And for example, at StartupWise, we try not to invest in startups whose only goal is to sell company, because we think then they might be making maybe not very responsible decisions at some point. For example, responsible towards environment or responsible towards society and so on. So of course, there should be a bigger purpose behind it, right? Why are you creating a company in the first place? When I created my company, which was a social enterprise called LIAA, maybe somebody from Latvians know, it was a long time ago. The goal was to provide entire employment for elderly people and minimize textile waste. And our goal was not to exit. Our goal was to prove that social entrepreneurship can be profitable, and we failed, but I hope others will prove it. But yes, basically the normal transition of a startup is that you raise money from investors, and then the company's value grows, and at some point you would expect to be bought out by somebody else. It's kind of like a food chain where the bigger sharks eat the smaller fish. But in case if you're successful, then that can be a moment when you can get millions back. Of course, you have to be extremely careful also on how the fundraising rounds are happening, but that's a whole another story. I would advise, if you ever can, watch the Estonian movie Chasing Unicorns, because it's an amazing movie that explains in a very, very simple way all of this, and it's similar to Kriminaalas Excellences Fund's style. So it's a really cool comedy made by Estonian startup people. Yep. Okay, so I hope the exit question was for example, what you mentioned about Apple. For example, one of our companies, a Belarusian company, the name Vochi, was, for example, acquired, I think, by Instagram or Pinterest. And it can be a strategy that you want to create, let's say, a super cool feature that the larger company doesn't have time or resources or agility to create themselves. And at one point they would be like, oh, okay, it makes sense just to acquire a company that already has a team, already has some kind of knowledge and potentially also a technical solution, and they integrate it in the bigger company. If we look at the landscape with tech companies, that's actually how it happens a lot, that at some certain stage of development, they're more buying others and integrating their teams than creating anything themselves. Yep. Okay, I see we have a whole exit conversation. I'm not going to go deeper in that one, but Pauls, maybe that's a good session to have and have also for the Startup School of Schools. I like it when I was at my first hackathon pitching and the jury said, "What's your exit strategy?" And I said, whoa, guys, we started developing idea 48 hours ago. I would lie to you if I have one. I would say first you have to worry about product market fit and monetization, and the exit comes after. Okay, I'm gonna go back to slides, and now I want to go deeper into 3 minutes pitch anatomy. Again, reminder, this is mostly for investor audience, but as I said, I still believe very relevant to you too. Do we see the slides? All good? Yep, bingo. So this is the minimum structure or skeleton that we ask our startups and startup-wise guys to develop when they're preparing for their fundraising or generally for the pitching at various tech conferences. And usually that's also what they include in the criteria if we talk about these on stage performances. If you look very kind of in a very kind of simple way, then the first point or up to third point is basically setting the scene. So you might want to create an understanding for the audience. What's the context? What is the problem? Potentially, what kind of audience's problem are you trying to solve? And what's going to be the solution, right? So kind of you're drawing the picture. The middle part, this is very, very technical, and I'm going to show you more kind of like examples and some tips and tricks. So starting from number 4, so competition, market, business, traction, status, and goals, or what's next. At least the 4, 5, and 6, as you can see, is very, very businessy part, where basically you have to show that you have researched, you understand what's happening. If you're in early stage, research might be, and some tests might be the only thing you actually can show. In a later stage, of course, you might want to show off how good you're doing in terms of traction. For example, we look usually at financial numbers. From the investor perspective, you might want to show what is the competitive landscape. So with whom are you competing? How is the market looking outside of your own kind of domain and potentially also outside of your home country if you're looking for international expansion. The last part of the 3 minutes pitch is mostly related to kind of your own team status and kind of wrapping up the 3 minutes pitch. So that's also the part that I really like. Usually people always light up when they're introducing their team, but also for those of you who are seriously looking into the building startup business, early stage investors first and foremost invest in people. Because usually neither the product nor the idea is that far developed or that unique, and they're always looking at kind of what kind of team is behind it and can that team make it happen. So even though it's kind of like the lighter part of the pitch, it's also a very, very important part of the pitch. Again, if your goal is at some point to raise money. And we always, and I always advise to also include some kind of ask. So I usually love that if people have spent 3 minutes listening to you, you might as well use that opportunity and ask something. Asks can come in different formats, and I'll tell you about them a bit later. This is not cut in stone. So first of all, this is a sequence you can go, but you can also swap it around. It depends how experienced you are generally in public speaking and pitching. For example, you might want to start with a team because you believe your team's so kick-ass that that's your winning card, that's your winning strategy, so you want to do it that way. Or you might want to build some kind of future vision or talk about your reasons why you're building something at the beginning or at the end and so on. So you can kind of swap things around. Sometimes startups ask me, okay, but I really don't want to include something from this. Like, I don't know, the business model is like not so interesting, or competition would take me 1 minute to explain. Then usually my advice would be to think if you have a Q&A session after your pitching, and I think in the case of Startup School of Schools, you will have, you can leave out some kind of important element because you will anyway be asked about it. So you can kind of save time during your 3 minutes presentation, because you will most likely get that question anyway. But if that is your strategy, you have to have bloody good answer to that topic that you have left out. And as I said, not cut in stone. You might want to swap some slides around or add some of them to your pitch deck. You could answer, for example, why now? Why what you're building? Why is now the right timing? Or maybe there's some kind of changes. We have lived through very, very turbulent years. So for many businesses, be it remote work, be it educational technologies, be it KYC and everything related to the client verification online world, for example, things have really changed, and you might want to emphasize that. Or you might want to, for example, really go deeper on the business model. Or, for example, number 5, if you have a complex product that you're building, you might want to explain how it works. The only thing you have to take into account, you have 3 minutes usually. If you have a time limitation, you have to squeeze it in. 2 things that I personally really like, and it's, I mean, you can still use it for the previous points, is roadmap as a design element. So basically you can show, let's say your, for example, progress of your company, what has happened before, what's going to happen in future in like the visual way. I'll show some examples later on. You can also show, for example, technical development of the product. You might show your market plans, for example, which markets you want to conquer, where do you want to expand, and things like that. And the second thing is that I somehow see it missing even for very experienced startups, existing clients. In your case, probably it's not the case, but you could still use some, for example, testimonials from people you have run some interviews, some tests, and so on. When you don't have the data, you can still use some qualitative inputs to convince that what you're building is needed, and somebody will actually pay for it, which would be the ultimate proof that you're building something meaningful. I'll check chat again. I don't know why I don't see it when I'm sharing screen. I will quickly finish and then I will stop sharing at one moment. So if you look at the almost 90% of 3-minute startup pitches, you would notice the same pattern that actually comes from pure sales process. So you indicate a problem, you show the solution, and you asked for some kind of action to happen. Overall, I would say that this is the how to say the proper way how you should go about it. The only challenge here is that if you are not good with the problem definition, for example, you have defined or you're explaining problem not relevant to the audience that's listening to you, basically you might not be your whole pitch might not be relevant. It's like if it's an arrow, you have just like shot it past the target. But anyway, very, very simple structure. And then again, based on this, then you can play around. How do you put things? I'll stop sharing for a second. Okay, I'm not sure, Eric, if that's, I guess you went on a deeper discussion about exits. I'm not sure if it's relevant to what I was saying. Yep. So before I go further in the examples, I also wanted to note an important thing. You have to understand how to use slides. So when it says pitch deck, usually it simply means a presentation that you're going to be using, and there can be 2 ways how you can use it. One is presenting it as when you're presenting it yourself, and you use it simply either as a background or as a visual aid for your voiceover for your presentation. And often startups actually send their decks also through email. So it means that you would not be doing voiceover for those slides. You just send slides. The big and very, very simple difference here is the following. Anything that you're using for your speech, unless it's educational, like for example, I have way more text, way more text of my slides than I would ever advise to have on a pitch deck. Anything that you use as a background to yourself on a stage or something you would share on a Zoom call should have as minimal visual and textual information as possible. Of course, you might still need data but for example, you should not put screenshots from your Excel spreadsheets. Or you might have, I don't know, seven features of the product. Okay, choose 3 that are relevant, right? Try to cut down everything that you can. I see it getting better and better in the Baltics, but we also work with startups from Africa, and it's just like blows my mind how cluttered are the slides that they present. Like they try to put icons, and then they try to put headers and big bullets and small bullets and disclaimer texts, and at one point you're just like, can't follow. The simple thing is that if people see a lot of text, they tend to read it and then they don't listen to you. As simple as that. So you want to keep the attention on yourself, and the slide should only help you. So ask yourself about every element that you put on a slide. Does it have to be there, or can I still get the message across without it? If you can get the message across without it and it's not adding any value, I would say delete. And definitely use visual aid where it's relevant, such as images, screenshots of, for example, how, let's say, how things can look like on the side of the product, anything like that. Maybe sometimes some demo videos or anything. So use wisely the visual format. So for pitching, when you have your voiceover, less is more principle for slides, be it for text, be it for visual element. Especially startups still do the mistake of adding absolutely nonsensical icons and all sorts of little images, like literally, if it's a bank, you could just write bank. You don't need to put a bank figurine on top of it. On the other hand, if you're sending a slide deck, pitch deck, let's say you're trying to get an investor and you want to actually send, they say, okay, send me more information about your startup, or you do the same with the customer or something. Then the slide should be self-explanatory. That means that in a slide deck that you're not presenting with the voiceover, obviously it should be readable. So it should be something that people can comprehend without your voiceover. So there, it's okay to have bullets. It's okay to have a bit more maybe data. It can be visually more cluttered because it's expected for people to actually read it. For anyone who thinks it's kind of like no-brainer, trust me, I see startups with customers and with fundraising rounds still doing this mistake and not knowing it, and I don't understand how anyone has given them money, but it still happens even in later stage. So it's still out there. So please don't make those mistakes. Yes, Yanis, I will share the slides in a PDF format afterwards with Paul, and I think Paul said he will share with you tomorrow. Alrighty, any questions till now? I would say everything very clear. Some of you I see are following me. Okay, I'm going to go back to slides and I'm going to dive deeper now in these elements that I was telling you about. And I'm going to start with my favorite, which is the hook. The hook in itself is like a trailer to a trailer. So I'm personally big fan of startup pitches, specifically because they train you to be very, how to say, almost artistic or scientific about how you go about it. And basically what the hook means. Hook means the start of your presentation. I'm right now talking about a pitch that you would present and use slides with. That catches and grabs the attention of the audience. And especially if you are in a setup where you're pitching together with other companies, let's say at the ending of the Startup School of Schools program, you might be the 10th in a row, and people are tired and they have very limited capability to follow. Plus, they might not necessarily be from the field that you're building your idea business in. Well, ideally, you would want to have their attention. So the hook is a smart way how you can grab that attention and ensure that people would listen to you for 3 minutes. If you don't hook them, then the chances that they slide into their phone or just switch off from Zoom if it's online, it's very highly probable. And if that happens, well, wasted 3 minutes, right? So it is important how you start the pitch. Before I go deeper into examples and suggestions and kind of like methods, I wanted to know, many startups often ask me, okay, let's say I'm pitching at the demo day or some kind of like finale. Should I start the pitch with saying, hi, my name is Zana, I'm from Startup Wise Guys, and I'm going to pitch my company? My rule of thumb is the following. If you have somebody introducing you, let's say Paul says, and now we're going to have Yanis with his idea, blah, blah, blah. I would say there is no point to repeat because it has just been said. And also you're losing precious seconds at the beginning of your pitch to grab attention. So I would say go straight in and be like, bam, like, did you know that every fourth retired people has nowhere to go apart from their bedroom, and therefore I'm building LIAA because I want to ensure that they actually can live a meaningful life. Hi, my name is Zana, I represent company LIAA, and I'm going to tell you about my business. So that's one way how to do it. If you are in a setup where nobody introduces you, you might still opt for it. I have a big fight with my colleague who also runs pitching training, Karina from Ukraine, and she always contradicts me on this one. And she says there is an exception if you have a very strong accent and if you're not a native speaker in English. This transition time when you introduce yourself might help the audience to adapt to your accent. So again, know yourself. If you know that your pronunciation is not perfect and you come from, let's say, a kind of culture, language, for example, I really struggle with African and Indian accents myself, just to comprehend them, then you might actually be smart and use this moment to introduce, Chrome says he can't update, too bad, all good. So basically use the transition time. Again, no-brainer advice, still see mistakes on later stage too. Okay, so how to hook the audience? First of all, let's remember they're all humans, so they will like stuff that they like as kids, such as stories and everything. But a very, very simple way is actually to surprise the audience. And this is usually very easy doable for almost any idea or any startup business out there. And this is also the preferred way how I see majority of the startups, especially in the B2B segment, where business to business segment, where my company operates. That's what the startups do. Give me a second, I will switch on the light because I see I'm entering the land of darkness. Better. And what can be a surprise? Well, quite simple. You might dig up some kind of unexpected fact about for example, that could be your also problem statement about what is happening in a market or how the world has changed, and then build your story on top of it. You might also come with some kind of controversial statement. I'm going to have a bit of background noise because my kids just came back from school. Sorry if that disturbs you. We're all humans. Those are my two humans. Then you can use some kind of controversial, yeah. Not now. Joe.
Like
Apologies. So you might also go out with some kind of controversial statement, something that would really kind of make the audience wake up. And a simpler way, not so sexy, but still you can do it. You can use a "did you know that" type of question. That's actually something that I've noticed in TED Talks that they sometimes use it. And I had this kind of like TED Talk suggestions, so I wasn't paying attention to what I'm listening to, and I was walking, and they said, "Oh, did you know something about?" And there was a word that said it consisted of tribe, but something else. And I was like, oh, okay, they're going to talk about tribes, like communities, something. It ended up being a conversation about a toothpaste and about how it rubs, like some kind of materials. And I listened to the whole TED Talk just because they asked the question. They hooked me, and I had the possibility to actually listen to it. So unexpected fact, controversial statement, or did you know that that formulation? Again, trying the chat, else you will have to assist me on the chat because it's just not doing, I don't get the pop-up somehow.
There's currently nothing there, so feel free to go on.
Yeah, cool. Alrighty, so quite simple. the next part, and here I wanted to do a bit of a detour and remark about overall pitching and public speaking. Very often, and actually also when I train people, this sounds like you're almost like robotizing certain thing, right? You write a script, you learn it by heart, you practice it many times, and then like a robot on stage or on Zoom call, you're like, and you're just executing on it. However, any public speaking, and even any speaking, even is it one-on-one or with a one-to-many, is happening with an audience. So there's actually somebody listening to you. And this is very important because you need to relate to that audience. That should be a conversation. This is one of the reasons why I said it's very important to kind of know whom you're talking to, because then you can calibrate. Great speakers always have options how they're going to talk, and they actually change it based on the audience's reactions. But also it just generally helps you to get yourself or your story across if you talk to people. And why is this important at this particular moment in my presentation is that when you relate on a personal level with the audience, it can be a very, very powerful connection. It is way easier to ensure it on site when you're pitching with the real humans in a room, but sometimes you can also do it in an online environment. Just to give you an idea what I'm talking about here. One thing is, of course, tell something from your own perspective that overlaps with the next topic that I have, which is telling about stories. So anything that you can kind of do to show your personality. One example, for example, is from our startups. There was a Latvian startup, and they were building online platform for pure breed dog shows. So quite a funny startup, and the founder was quite technical, and he definitely wasn't your average charismatic speaker. But when he had to pitch, he went on stage and he said, "Hi, my name is Andres, and I have a dog." And then he paused, and everybody in the room laughed. Of course, somebody was probably listening if they're a dog person or a cat person. He paused, and then he went on with the story, which of course contained a lot of dogs on the slides, and so overall was about dogs. What happened here, he managed to relate on a personal level. He came with certain vulnerability. People saw him. And also for the audience, it was like, oh, okay, interesting. So it didn't maybe add huge value to the pitch itself and to kind of like the story he was about to tell, but there was a connection established with the audience. There was a bit of laughing and so on. Another aspect, oh, by the way, and here a disclaimer, please never ever, well, I advise you not to go in the direction where you start saying how nervous you are, or that you can't breathe, or, oh my God, I have social anxiety or something like that. Nobody knows. I often have my legs are shaking when I'm doing on stage presentation, and nobody has ever noticed that. And they usually come to me as like, oh my God, you did so well. And I'm like, you don't want to know. But people don't know, it's only you. So that's the part you have to manage. Second thing is to showing empathy for their perspective. Here I have a story from my own personal experience from very, very early on in my PR career. I was asked to do a case study. I was absolutely like, I had just started working in a PR agency in Latvia, and I was asked to do a case study presentation in like the conference where all of the Latvian public relations professionals were sitting in a room. So imagine I'm like this, as Latvians say, zaļais gurķis, and I needed to present somebody else's project in front of professionals who would judge me quite a lot. Trust me, my stress level was through the roof. And I happened to have the middle of the, like before lunch, in that session, the last presentation, like the room was dead. There was no oxygen. People were yawning. Nobody was paying attention. I went on the stage and I said, listen, I know all of you just want to go and have lunch. I'll be quick. And I finished my presentation, I think 2 minutes before like the time limit. And some people still after 2-3 years remembered it. And they say, oh my God, we remember you from that conference. Funny, but what happened is that there was this empathy shown towards the room. Of course, if all of you would do this in a row, and everybody said, hey, I see you're tired. Hey, I see this and that. Of course, it wouldn't work. That this is where you have to read the room. And again, easier to do on site than is online. I wanted to jump one step back to the question, to the did you know that? And again, one mistake that I see quite, well, not a mistake, but maybe not a favorable tactic that I see by some presenters, they like to start with a question towards the audience, but with a question that requires an answer. Very, very tricky thing. Really depends on the circumstances and what are you asking. If you are in a room of people, so you're actually pitching on a stage, you might use this option rather than probably to do it online. However, imagine you ask something that requires an opinion to be expressed. And what might happen? If you're in the Baltics, you will probably get silence, like awkward silence, right? If you're not in the Baltics or you happen to have a very active audience, people might actually start answering you. What do you do then? Because you have 3 minutes to pitch, right? Neither of the options are really favorable if you're talking in a very short time frame. In a longer speech, that's a different story. Here, my advice would be better ask either, well, you can ask a rhetorical question that doesn't require an answer, still find it awkward. Or you might want to ask something that requires a body reaction. I like to do a lot of like raise your hand if, or stand up if, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. That is okay. And that actually might really help you again to relate to the audience. But be careful with that and don't ask, well, my advice would be don't opt for questions that really imply that you're waiting for an answer if you're not willing to actually listen to that answer, or if you're not willing to sustain an awkward silence. Alrighty, last one. So we can surprise, we can relate on a personal level, and of course we can entertain. And who, I don't think there's a single person, unless they're like psychopaths or something, that wouldn't love a good story. I believe they do too. So stories, of course, are the kind of the, again, you have to use the word ultimate, like the ultimate threshold, right? If you can come up with a story and you can make it a short one, because in the pitch it's important that it doesn't take too much time, then definitely opt for it. Sometimes I have startups asking me, okay, but what do I do? Like if I actually don't have a story, it says, well, first look for it, because you might have just not looked for it. It might exist there. There's a lot of typical stories, is, for example, how the idea was born or how the co-founders met and so on. Great timing, verifying OneDrive. Thank you, computer. You're not collaborating with me today. Sorry for the pop-ups. But if you come to a place where you understand, okay, there is no story to tell, that is also okay. Opt for another format. You don't need to necessarily tell a story. What could be a story? Story can really take very, very different forms. For example, when I was building my own company, my pitch usually started with the following story. When my mom retired, the only place where she could go to socialize and feel alive was library, shop, and well, church if a person is a believer. And I'm building a business that would provide employment, space to kind of place to go, and kind of like an opportunity to live a meaningful life and produce something that other people would want to buy for the elderly people. So I was relying on my own personal story. There's also weaving involved, but I'm not going to go there. And there's a lot of these stories, like for those of you who know Bolt and Taxify, the story was that I think one or both of the founders were visiting actually Kiev, I think Ukraine at the time, and they couldn't call properly Uber, and they were like, okay, the calling a taxi was a hassle, we don't know the language and so on. So actually that is how Bolt was, Taxify was created. Again, very personal story. We went on a travel, we experienced a problem and we wanted to build something to change that. In one of our startups case, for example, quite, I would say, really cool Australian founder. He was accelerating with us in Latvia. His story was the following. He went on stage and he was, and his hook was, on the first day of my work, a colleague died. And I'm building a startup so that never happens again. His startup is related to wearables for people who are, for example, working in construction or working in warehouses and so on, to predict trauma. So it also connected very well. When he said it, like the room went like silent, like this, like you could hear a needle drop. Of course, you have to have the energy to pick it up afterwards. If you mention death, then people are like, ugh, like, what's going to happen now? But very, very powerful way. And I could bet that 90% of the room couldn't care less about wearables for construction industry safety and work safety in general, but everybody listened. That's the value of a hook. So if you grasp the attention, people will show you the courtesy to listen to you till the end. Another thing, again, very specific, is humor. Generally, humor is a super cool thing in public speaking if it is your thing and if you're good at it, go for it. However, starting with a joke is something that I would only allow to someone that is really natural in it, and it can become something very, very awkward. Also, be aware of cultural context if you're doing something in international environment. I work in a company that has more than 20 nationalities. Trust me, not everything that you think is funny flies with other cultures and other contexts. So humor only if it's your thing, but it's also a really nice trick to use all throughout the presentation if you want to liven it up. Last but not least, this is my personal favorite that I used quite a lot when I was doing sales on behalf of the PR agency that I used to work for. I used the word imagine. I think imagine is a word that unlocks something in our brains, very similar to once upon a time. So people, I think they activate some kind of creative thinking when you use that word. And this, I think, is very powerful if what you have to explain is something very complicated, or if you have to create this vision of something where you want the audience to follow you. So that's a kind of a sneaky way how you can get their attention. I'll quickly show you some examples in terms of the slides, but this is the moment I'm going to start entertaining you with the videos, because I think we probably need a bit of creative break. This is one of our portfolio companies from Lithuania. Actually, sadly enough, they closed this year. They actually got, say, burned because of not the best advice from investors, which is actually a very sad story. So sometimes growth can hurt you so much that you can't grow further. So that's talking about the exit part. But this is one of their slides. So they started with the fact statement. So 1 out of 4 customer abandons shopping cart if the same day delivery is not available. And surprise, surprise, what were they offering? They were offering B2B solution for same day and actually 1 hour delivery. And this was another thing that they used in their slide deck. Remember when I said that sometimes visuals are more powerful than words, and you definitely should use the visual power. So this is a way how you can kind of say the same thing, but you can say it with a photo. And remember I said that, did you know that question? So this is one of our also agri-tech startups. And they start the pitch asking, do you know how data makes farming more sustainable? If you remember when I mentioned this before, the structure of like the problem statement, solution, and action, for me, this though is an example of where the problem statement is really not relevant to me. So I really don't care about data and farming. I might care about the sustainability. So it might mean that I'm not the right audience for this hook. And probably majority of you out there listening to me today might not either. So this is just a proof. So this is not the bestest best example out there, but it gives you an idea how you can also go wrong if you want actually to attract generic audience. So this would not be considered a good hook, but it might be a very good hook for a very expert and focused audience that wants to actually learn about it. Yeah, I'm not going to jump further than that. Yep, I'm just checking. Yeah, Christine is also saying that the mighty risk of questions, and I see also advice about humor and a book, The Culture Map. That is great. Okay, so I'm just going to see some faces. You look like majority of you are still with me, and the vast majority is hiding behind the cameras. What I'm going to do right now, I'm gonna use the time and show you a few real pitches from startups pitching, as I said, both online and on site. And in some cases, I might not show you the full pitch just because it kind of might not make sense. I hope my internet can handle it. Pauls, I will ask for you to write me in the chat if it's working okay, because sometimes it delays because I'm going to be sharing video on my screen. If we will start getting trouble with the internet, I will just send those examples later in links, and you can then look over them yourself.
If you want to, there's an option that if it doesn't work that well for you, then you can send me the links and I can share my screen.
Okay. Yeah, I just saw that my image sometimes goes a bit pixelized, so I'm just wanted to make sure it's sent today from a different room, and the Wi-Fi doesn't maybe hiccupy. Okay, so I'm going to show you the pitches, and what I want you to think, and I would be very happy if you would write in the chat while the pitch is happening, but afterwards if there's somebody brave, I would love to also listen to comment. So try to look at the pitch and guess what was the audience and the goal. Most likely, we don't know. I haven't asked them, but I have my assumptions, or at least how it seems from the way that they talk. With whom are they talking? And what do they want? And secondly, try to just kind of overall notice, maybe there was some kind of cool thing that you could, oh, this was a smart way to do it. Or maybe something was like, nah, totally didn't work with me. Like, yuck, why did they ever do it? So, I mean, just kind of activate your brain looking at it. None of these examples are like superstar examples. None of them are like epically bad. They're just average, normal startups. So kind of there's going to be good stuff and there's going to be bad stuff. And usually what I've seen, you learn better from the bad stuff than from the good stuff. Okay, end of disclaimers. So I'm gonna go to the YouTube, and we're gonna start with this one. Give me a second. I need to make sure that I'm sharing sound. Okay.
From Finland. Here, you will get this for me. Good hunting.
If you own a forest anywhere in the world today, you are being ripped off. Let me explain. The way that forests are currently measured for value might as well be from the Stone Ages. A guy goes into your forest with one of these, he then spins into a circle and goes, yeah, right. It's worth about $2 million. Now, obviously, that's quite inaccurate. In fact, they can be off by millions. This $2 million valuation can actually mean $1 million or $3 million. That's up to a 50% inaccuracy in your valuation. You might as well just burn half of your forest right now. You might as well just take your trees down to Vegas and throw them down the roulette table because you are gambling with your assets. And when your forest valuations are wrong, you are selling wood blind, you are buying wood blind, and your insurance costs are completely off. If you look at the world, and just at Finland alone, where we're from, that's over 630,000 forests which are valued inaccurately. And they're all losing tons of money. So how do we solve this worldwide issue? 3 words. Silvere, silvere, and silvere. This is our team. We're a group of hired guns, all recruited from other companies to make this happen. And what our company does is we send drones to your forest, lots of them. And the way that it works is they're equipped with the most advanced LIDAR and laser scanning technologies and artificial intelligence in the world. And this is how the operations go. So they go scan, scan, beep, boop. They then send it down to our server somewhere, which also goes, I believe, beep, boop. And then we just know all the trees in your forest. It's that simple. So every single tree, its height, its width, its volume, its value today, as well as into the future. So when we tell you that your forest is worth $3 million, it's magically worth $3 million because we know what we're talking about. It's very accurate. On top of that, we give you a beautiful user interface to manage all of your assets and click on every single tree in a forest.
I'm gonna stop here. I saw two comments already. Forestry, the target. Okay, so Pauls, you were writing the video lags a bit. I hope it didn't lag too much.
It wasn't too bad.
I hope
So
for
I
others
think
too.
you can continue sharing.
Well, at least you were smiling at all the right moments, so I guess it proved it. Okay, I'm going to check. So Sabine is writing Finland and forest. Definitely, forestry is the target. So you would say that the forest owners or whom, because forestry is kind of like very broad. David is saying, I'm interested into forestry. He has my interest immediately. Christina says forest owners in USA and product program for forest owners. Okay, Misha saying it was funny and an attention grabber because the solution was also great and relatable. Machine learning. Anybody wants to share in the voice? Or how are you feeling? Sabine saying very good pitch, enjoyed it. Any brave person? I guess I will have to talk with myself. Yeah, that's okay. I would say that on one hand, I liked it. You liked it. Funny. Okay, Janis, you have your hand up. Go.
Usually, when I hear someone is actually trying to comment on the pitch that some startup is making, usually they say, "Oh, you have to." Be close to this, standard or something, but this was like super way off. It was completely off. So yeah, it was in that way, it was really not like for the investors, I would say.
Yeah, so thanks for it. Actually, that's very useful remark that you just made. It definitely was not an investor pitch, and actually that was one of the comments that at least a rumor had it that the startup got from the jury was that it was missing altogether anything related to business and traction. So it was clearly made more to entertain the audience, and I actually would be brave enough to say that probably they just wanted to win the pitch competition. So it was in a way even just a stage performance, because I would say that their goal was to entertain, because when I have been presenting it to more serious, kind of like, let's say more serious, to audiences that are like, I asked, would you invest? And it was very funny that I was presenting it to youngsters at Swedish School of Economics in Riga, and they're like, nah, we would not, but we would go work for them. They sound cool, so here this just proves that you have to be very aware of the audience. Some people, for example, have, especially, I don't know why, but females have really disliked it because they say it's really dumbifying. So like, oh, beep boop. Yeah, it's kind of like funny, but at the end of the day, you're assuming that I don't understand stuff, which is actually, well, okay, I don't know still don't know what a LiDAR is compared to laser, but still there were some people who said, well, I feel like they think I'm stupid when I'm watching this. So you have to also be careful. No, I love Beep for the other reasons, but there have been ladies in the audience that were like, I really like, I felt like even like they pushed me away, the style how it was presented. For some, especially technical founders, they really dislike the use of GIFs, but these memes, right? You have Jackie Chan or what was there, right? And this kind of all gambling thing and so on. However, the guy is like an epic presenter. Like I'm still amazed. This is a very old example. I'm still showing it because he did so many things right to get the audience. It's like every second thing that he did would be kind of from a book. He made it super relatable. He started with this controversial statement, if you remember, and he said you might be as well burning your forest, right? So there's a lot of like drama. So even if you couldn't care less and you don't own a forest, most likely you actually listened. He was using humor very well, but it fit his personality. So you could hear laughter in the background, and also I noticed some were laughing. I was laughing too, still do. He made the problem very clear when he was showing this example in the forest, even though Clicker wasn't collaborating with him. So he made slides that were very kind of dependent on Clicker working very, very well. Those technical issues always happen. Like I have had myself to present without Clicker working at all on a conference. That's fun. And the important thing is to continue doing whatever you're doing and smile and embrace it and just say, hey, Clicker's not working today, so let's deal with it. And anyway, so there was a lot of really cool things, and I will share them. share the links afterward. Is using memes in front of investors a thing, or pitch should be more formal? Cool question. I don't know, then I guess the name is D. But basically depends. The younger the audience is, the more likely they could actually relate. And I think it also depends what is your business and what is the brand, and also what's your personality. We love GIFs at Startup Wise Guys, and for example, we did include a GIF in our investor deck which says "Give us the money," but as the marketing team, the investment fundraising team erased it. I would say it all really depends on the context. I really love companies that are real. And if you are humorous, there might be a very humorous investor. And when you're looking for an investor, it's like marriage. You actually want to have an investor with whom your values and your style matches. And if it's truly you, then go for it, right? So I would say that it's, of course, you have to understand rules of the game. But once you do, I think you also should embrace who you are, what your business is, and act accordingly. I hope that answers. Alex is saying, I'm a tech guy, the pitch was cool, but obviously not serious. Yep, being authentic, exactly. So I mean, I personally, I'm a big believer that that's the ultimate answer to public speaking. It doesn't dismiss training, but authenticity is the key. Definitely, that's a whole different story. Okay, I see. I'm actually Eric, you wanted to comment something?
Yeah, I don't have my camera on. I just wanted to comment that you really have to read the person, the vibe they're in. Like you have to match their vibe if you want to sell them something, and that's the main problem of startups in general. I think if a person wants to invest 10 million into you, you have to match their vibe. If they're young, if they're old, or no, I mean not in a like age thing, but just their vibe. What their interests are in, and what sort of person are they? And if you can match their vibe, it's probably going to be okay.
Their vibe attracts your tribe. Yeah. Thanks, Eric, for sharing. Totally agree. This is what I usually say about knowing your audience, but still, I would say that you have to respect and know the other, but your authenticity has to stay. I see sometimes startups who are super life hackers, and they're kind of like, oh, okay, with this guy, I need to drink vodka, and with this one, I need to, I don't know, talk about dogs, and with this one, I need to do this. Yeah, but don't lose yourself in the process, because if we're talking about investment or employment, it's a long-term game. Okay, of course, you have to flirt and you have to charm and you have to lure someone in through the door, but at the end of the day, you also have to live with them, and things will get nasty. And if you have been pretending, it will be very hard to kind of keep up that game in a long run. For example, when the financials are not great and the investors start asking you questions. Misha, I see you also wanted to add something.
I think the presentation, okay, there was some memes and the stuff, but I think the most valuable thing is that he added value, where he showed us the picture where he showed us that people are burning their money because a lot of people don't understand the value of services or product. So if he helps, this product helps. I think the thing that was good because he grabbed the attention, and always with attention, it goes, somebody likes it, somebody hates it. That's good because they listen to him. And that's the great part for investors also. I believe that was the really good thing that he explained how the product works and what's the value of it. So yeah, for me it was okay. It was funny, and I was listening the whole presentation till the moment when he went to show the value for the customers, because it's really valuable in every business or real estate, anything, because people don't understand the value of their, for example, as real estate or forests. So yeah, I think it was good that he grabbed the attention, but he also had the solution. So it wasn't just being funny.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Pause, FYI disclaimer for you. I still have quite some content. You told me that I'm allowed to do max 2 hours. I think for anyone, if you really kind of need to at some point jump off, I will be right now showing a few more examples, and I'm going to return to the slides. If I see that like everybody drops off, then I will not continue with the slides. But regardless, you will receive also the slides, and there's quite a lot of self-explanatory information there also if we don't manage to cover it all. And also I have some book suggestions for you you to look into for better pitches. All right, but thanks for being active. This is the biggest value, because you can also learn from each other, and some aspects might not come through from my presentation. So continue doing that. That's great. Makes me also feel like I'm not talking to myself. Let's I'm probably not going to show all of this pitch, but let's quickly look at something else from the same year. Alrighty, I'm sharing it again. Fingers crossed. Full screen. Let's go.
Okay, hi, my name is Simon and I'm introducing Hive. Our team is united by a single purpose. We want to become a global GNSS correction signal provider. And here is how we're going to do that. There are lots of industries which can't imagine their day-to-day operations without high precision positioning and navigation. These industries are drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, cadastral surveying, mining, construction, agriculture, or even science, when people want to study such phenomena as the motion of the Earth crust. In order to do their job, they need a professional GPS receiver. But to get their job done, they need a source of data that will send corrections to this receiver and correct floating signals that are coming from satellites. This source of data is called a continuously operating reference station, and the station allows its users to get this much of positioning precision. So the stations are deployed on the ground and form a ground infrastructure. Each station works within a range of 50 kilometers and transmits correction to the end user. And there are problems, of course. Governments can't pay enormous expenses to deploy a centralized ground infrastructure. Users are struggling to find a single access point to all deployed stations. And station owners don't want to pay overrated prices for station management software. We saw that and created Hive. It's a cloud platform as a service that provides a single, easy access to all deployed stations around the world for everybody. It's like a super system that unites existing stations and pieces of infrastructure together. It's free for infrastructure owner, and users are paying for the data. We are not pioneers here.
Stop sharing there. So no comments. So my question is, did anybody even listened? Sophie is saying, lost me very quickly with all the acronyms and technical terms. Classic expert pitch. Yes, that's exactly that. Anybody wants to? Okay, somebody is unmuting.
Yeah, on the previous one, I was able to remember the name of the company and go immediately to their website. Now, at first I was thinking, oh, this guy, I can't remember the name of his company, but then he brought it back in right as I was like gonna post that comment. He brought the name back in, Hive, so he kind of recovered very well. But with the previous one, it was like Silvere. That was very memorable. So I thought that was a good point of the previous one. But here, this guy brought back in Hive, so I was actually able to look up his company. So both cases, they got my interest. They actually got me to go to the website. I think it's good.
Then you're surprising me, because usually after a show this pitch, the result is that people are like, nah, either didn't listen or they listen because of it's an exercise, right? Because I'm forcing you to.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between if you're going for a strategic investor, somebody that knows your business, then you don't really care if you're not reaching the general audience. And I think certainly the first one, if there's a strategic investor, he's got their interest immediately. And, you know, if he doesn't catch the other people, that's probably not such a bad thing, because ultimately I feel that the best investor is somebody that at least knows enough about your business that you don't have to explain to. Well, if we can, you know, characterize all the forests in the world, you know, you don't need to tell somebody how much value you're bringing to the table with that. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Fun fact, we did invest in this startup after their pitch. So, but I still remember my first mentoring session, and they spent the whole session time trying to explain what they do. So I could add very little value. But as I noticed, still majority would say, like, I'm very happy actually for those of you who were listening, who liked it. Usually ask if anybody can explain what they were doing, or did you understand? Pronunciation wasn't that good. Of course. Yep. Yeah, and Maris is saying lost my attention in first seconds. Yanis is saying you understood. Yeah, but not many would. I will quite quickly go into showing you evolution of the same founder pitching the same startup in a year. Of course, I could proudly say that it's all our doing, but actually the founders were really good with developing awesome pitch themselves. I just want you to show how different the same thing can be pitched, and also to prove you that that training and focused work does miracles. Alrighty, such a dun 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 dun. So now let me show you. I'll show you another one. Take full screen. Well, let's go.
Hi everyone. We live in the world of machines, autonomous tractors, trains, self-driving cars, ships, drones. All of them use GPS satellites for navigation. But for autonomous machines, this navigation must be super accurate, down to 1 centimeter. It's mission critical for big industries to define the location of their assets, just with this much precision. Size matters, right? So all of these machines, in order to be positioned accurately, have to be connected to a special correction station. This station is deployed on the ground and works within a range of 100 kilometers. And there are thousands of them in Europe. They are all owned by governmental or commercial data providers. They are all different. And I am, as a drone owner, don't know how to find this station, how to connect to it. Is it working or not? What equipment is there? What software is there? How to sign a contract? So these questions pop up again and again each time I want to start a new project. And by going through all of them, I lose time and resources. We saw that problem and created Hive, a solution for super accurate GPS navigation in real time. Hive unifies the market and brings all of the data providers and all of their correction stations under one roof, and they're all available in one place, a marketplace. And our business model is simple. When we sell the data, we take 50% of the revenue. The market is almost 5 billion euros and it's going to grow twice by 2025. And we can go for it because we've built this system before. Back in Russia, my team contracted more than 100 data providers whose 500 stations cover 1/3 of the world's biggest country. But now is the time to go global, and we can do that. So we created a company here and got baked by startup wise guys. And now we are approved by European Space Agency Business Incubation Center. We have a great team of mathematicians building positioning algorithms, computer scientists, information security professionals, engineers who doesn't want to do anything else but build Hive. And I want you to join me along the journey because right now we are not raising, but I need your help to connect these stations to us from Baltics and Western Europe. We tested our software with Starship, but we are looking for other companies that are building future machines now. Drones, robots, unmanned systems, and vehicles. This is how the future is going to be. Amazing. And if you want to build it with us, please come talk to me after the show. Thank you. I'm Simon from Hive.
Alrighty, so let's see the chat. I like the hand gestures. He lost me at 50%. Nice visualization on map. I am techie, I understand the technology unless I do not believe this guy. Yeah, Christina got it. Yeah, he had problems answering the question about the business model. That was where Q&A got him in trouble. Misha, if that was your question, that was tricky. And you could also see how quickly he went over it. He actually didn't want to talk about it. Also, overall, his pitch didn't cover quite a lot of still the metrics parts, and that also was a criticism from jury, if I remember correctly. But still, like what I wanted to show you is actually the transformation, right? That from something that is still very, very techy and difficult, and you would say like it's not possible to explain it relatively simple. I would say after this pitch, you at least have an understanding how it works, even if you're not techy, you have nothing to do with satellites, drones, or unmanned systems or whatever. So that's just a proof of the evolution. Yeah, and Sabine, you noted I mentioned in the beginning of the pitch that I will show you one example. So this was the example where there was a lot of this future facing pitch, because we're still not having self-driving cars as a regular thing out there on the streets every day. So there's applicability, or the pain is going to probably come more in future. Okie dokie. Do we still have energy? I still wanted to show you. Let me quickly check. I wanted to show you one last example, especially for designed for male audiences. No, I'm joking. Sorry for all the sexist comments today. Like it's kind of weird evening mode. I guess my brain's a bit already getting fried after a working day. One last pitch, and with this one, I actually want you to notice that it's how long it's going to be. Because if you think that 3 minutes is difficult, then watch this lady. Alrighty, here we go.
We're Pepper, and we're a clothing company for small-chested women, and we're starting with bras. Women are now redefining their body standards. They're done with being told what they need to look like. And the companies that are embracing body positivity are the ones that are stealing market share from companies like Victoria's Secret. I get the question all the time, why do you even need to wear a bra? Well, there's still boobs. And when I do wear a bra, I don't completely fill it, so it creates this awkward bra gap. And companies think if you have small breasts, it must mean you want a push-up bra to look bigger. But no one gets that I just want to look like myself and celebrate what I've got. This is our first product, the All You Bra, that we launched in April on Kickstarter, and it features our authentic lift design that eliminates bra gaps and creates natural-looking cleavage. We also recently just worked with our R&D team to create custom molded bra cups because all the cups out there weren't cutting it for us. Our unique bra cups are shallower in depth, ensuring that perfect fit. And the difference is huge, right? All puns intended. No more bra gaps, no more heavy push-up padding, just all you. And the response from our community was incredible. In just 10 hours, we were 100% funded. We were featured in over 30 press outlets, including Cosmopolitan, Glamour Magazine, Daily Mail, and so much more, because everyone was so excited to share our story. So we're positioning Pepper as the affordable bra for all small-chested women. 61% of women in America wear a AA, A, or B cup. That's a $4 billion market that's currently going underserved. So we want to close the literal and figurative gap in the industry. Thank you.
Evening entertainment. So let's see. Yeah, response from industry was very effective. It was below 2 minutes. So to anyone who thinks that 3 minutes is difficult, check out this lady. And it was very packed pitch. Of course, this was not an investor pitch, as you noticed. So she was kind of more like, I would say, selling a success case of her business. And probably it was a pure like competition format. Of course, it would be 3 minutes if she had to cover all of the aspects. But she did manage to drop quite a lot of kind of proof points throughout, such as, for example, we got fully funded in 10 hours. And also for me personally, really like it how they talk about the market size at the end, which proves that it's not some kind of like niche minor kind of challenge faced by a small audience, but actually there's a huge market out there. Sabine is ready to be the client. Actually, I always think of it. I watch the speech. I need to look for them if they actually made it as a proper business. Eric is saying amazing. Misha quickly tackled the problem and showed the solution plus huge market. Eric knows the problem, knows the audience, has the solution. It was just like picture perfect packaged and in such a short time. Nobody mentioned it here, but personally for me, I am amazed of the vulnerability that this person was ready to show in front of a crowd and just talk about her body in that way. But I think it's also that absolutely sells it, right? She was just so confident, but also so kind of like, here I am. And that was also kind of the brand promise, right? So it matches. And that also makes me think about it, that reminds about this just be the authenticity, but also really connecting with the audience and kind of like being there instead of just like, okay, I'm just gonna chop, show you the numbers and sell something. Okay, David has a point. She could have reminded, it was called Pepper. I do remember, but I watched it as an example for a few times. But yeah, so basically vulnerability, you can do it short, you can do it very, very effective. And yeah, we could go even deeper to analyze, for example, how she was name dropping Victoria's Secret, even though elegantly, because she didn't kind of, it was a very elegant way to talk about competition. And she also definitely lifted it with the vision of kind of, it's not, we're not just bra producer, we're actually talking about body positivity and about accepting yourself and so on. So again, they added this kind of like layer of purpose beyond just, hey, we're just producing something that seems to be hot on Kickstarter, right? Pepper, yeah, that's the name. I'll share the links with Pulse for you. Okay, cool. I love the Googling in the background. It's like, it looks like we have investors invading. That's what they usually do at the pitch competitions. You can see who are actually there to work when you have a pitch competition. Then you see the investors in the back rows where they actually have the computer open and they're like, let me Google the startup. Let me look at things. Okay, cool. As we're running probably out of brain power, I'm going to quickly go back to my slides and walk you over the elements of the pitch, and I would tend to think that we will finish by your time. It should be 8, I guess, and mine 7. I hope you're still with me. Give me a second. Going back to slides, putting them in screen share. Should be fine. But I also need your thumbs up. Thumbs up. Cool. So if you remember the 3 minutes 3 minute slide deck anatomy, I was mentioning the first point that it was problem or hook. Simply kind of so a hook can be a standalone trick that you use to hook the audience, such as, for example, the example that I mentioned, hi, I'm Andres and I have a dog, is a standalone hook that has very little to do with the problem explanation. However, if we go back, for example, to this is a hook that already explains the problem. So just make sure, in case if you're using artificial hook, the next thing that you should do logically would be to explain the problem. Like as you mentioned, for example, the guy presenting silver did it very well because he explained what is happening wrong in terms of how forests are currently measured. So just make sure that you have the problem clearly explained, especially if your hook doesn't do that. Secondly, now I'm going to go to a lot of technicalities and I will go quite quickly over. Remember, you're going to have the slides. These slides are more for you to also read afterwards. It is very important to explain whose problem you are solving. It doesn't mean that the customer explanation has to come after the problem in the structure and the sequence, but your pitch should cover it. And especially if you are into B2B segment, you need to talk about what kind of companies are you serving. Apologies for the B2B constant kind of comments, because we mostly work Startup Riga as business to business companies. So those companies that sell to other companies, not to regular consumer on the street. However, if you are into B2C, so if you're selling to or want to build startup that sells to regular person, I always advise not to go that much into demographics, saying, okay, our target audience is a female, 30 years old, has 1 kid and has a house of this size, but rather to look what pain or challenge that particular group of people might be facing. So pain and challenges are kind of more important or more relevant than necessarily just demographics. Yep, and there might be a case when you're serving more than just one type of customer. Sometimes there might be a difference who especially in the enterprise sale, there might be a chain, like it's a complex sale. So it might be that it's the financial guy who makes the decision, but it's the technical security guy who needs the solution, right? Who's gonna, and at the end of the day, it will be used by another audience. Just make sure that you yourself understand it and it is understandable through the pitch. So you don't get the question, okay, like I really didn't get it. So who's your customer? To whom are you selling it? Keep those things in mind. Regarding the solution, so solution should be the answer to the problem that you have presented at the beginning normally of your pitch. Here, I actually don't want to go deeper. I just want to make sure that there is a logic. And what I mean with that, if you're talking, for example, like City about abandoned e-commerce carts because of the same day delivery, then logically the solution should be about that same day delivery, not something else. Funny enough, I often see problem statements being very, very wide. For example, there might be let's say, sustainability startup who talks about all the possible waste in the world, but their solution is related only to mobile phone repairs and kind of upcycling. So their pitch and the hook and the problem statement should be narrower, because actually they're not solving all of the waste problems in the world. They're solving quite a narrow chunk of it. So that's something just to keep in mind, that there's an internal logic. I will stop sharing. I want to check the chat quickly. Okay, that I guess is a comment of the pepper, right? Eric's, you're checking. Okay, I'm gonna go back to slides because I can't read your chat somehow today with the slide sharing. Okay, going back, if you have any questions related to the topic, also shoot. I'm just speeding it up a bit, so I do go over. Thanks, fellas. Thumbs appreciated. All right, so we have hooked the audience, we have stated the problem, we have explained to which customers we are providing a solution, and we have linked logically that, hey, to this problem, this is going to be the solution. If you're into technology, probably you're building some kind of product, which is the solution, right? Which is kind of like, hey, this is how we're going to solve the problem. Fun fact, many startups actually often forget to explain what the actual product is. And I think maybe it's because founders are very overwhelmed with their own product, and it seems very straightforward that if they're pitching that there is a product. However, I do ask you to keep an eye on this. If you're building something that actually has a technological product, even if it's not something you can visually show, so let's say you're not into hardware, robotics, you can't show things, still try to explain what it is, and if you can, show it. In this case, for example, in the image, you can see one of our portfolio startups, Sigurd from Castprint, and whenever he was pitching, he would always have, that's actually the red thing is the product that they're building. So Latvian startup, you might actually know them. So they're creating 3D printed tailor casts for extremities, so for legs and arms. I always appreciate the red color, as that's our Startup Riga's brand color. They made a nice tribute creating it in this, but it was really cool when he's presenting, he can show it. And I always say, if you have a physical product to show, like, blast it off. It's the greatest thing you can have, because it will constantly catch attention. However, if you do not, there's different ways how you can still work around it. You can create screenshots, for example, from the online interaction, for example, be it let's say be it a mobile app, you can show kind of how does the app looks like. You can create a mini demo. GIF format is advised. Anyway, it should be a very light and short video if you use it, but do remember that you might experience quite a lot of technical glitches. Although, for example, we had one VR startup that was working in a real estate, well, still is working, and they created the VR models for example, new buildings, and they used the demo as majority of their pitch. And it was really powerful because it's quite abstract, so it's hard to explain it if you don't show it, and people like to kind of really actually see it. Right now, we just finished extended reality program in Malaga in Spain, and there was a lot of startups who are actually using demos because they're working in metaverse, so you're working with augmented reality, and then there was an easier way to show instead of just trying to explain. If you are not there yet, also mockups is something that you can show, so you can show in future how it will work, kind of click through something and so on. I'm not saying fake it till you make it, but I think it is important to show at least what you have in your mind, what you have already built, how it would look like. Often startups forget it, that they actually can use photos of customers using the product. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be, like in this case, a cast on your hand, but it could be still an interaction of a customer with a mobile app or something. And basically anything that proves and shows what you have built is valid and works. Also, it is important that you clearly name what it is. Sometimes, for example, startup pitches, blah, blah, and I can't understand, is it a mobile application, or is it a kind of like a web tool you use on your computer? Or is it just kind of like some kind of algorithm thingy that you sell to large companies without any kind of like other client touch points or anything? And when you are explaining these things, if you're having voiceover your pitch, so you're showing slides and then you're explaining something with your voice, also remember that you can modulate what do you show on the slides and what do you say in your voiceover. For example, you might have quite a lot of things on your slides, but on your voiceover, you could emphasize a very specific thing. And you can say, okay, so 3D printed casts, and what is very important, you actually can take a shower with them. Right, so it's kind of like understand where you want to lead the focus. I'm rocket speed ahead. I'm losing my breath. I hope you're with me. Competition and market. Very technical slides. If it's not relevant to you, kind of like just stick with me. I'm also not like a mega expert on what has to go into these. However, have seen quite many of them. Basically, there are fancy words how these are called, but the bottom line is there are different ways how you can show the competitive landscape. And it is like, to me, the rule of thumb is very simple, or kind of like my approach is that if you know your competition well and you're realistic about the market, it means you're a good founder, because you don't live in some kind of utopia that there's nobody you're competing with. So it is actually okay that there are competitors. So that's nothing to shy away from. Your competitors might be in a different geography. For example, there's a lot of startups who say, okay, there's a successful company doing this in US. We're going to do it in Europe. Europe is different in terms of regulation or whatever. So we're going to do it, or we're going to do it in a specific language, let's say Spanish speaking or Chinese speaking countries. That's okay. If there are no competitors, it actually is worse. Because then it means, okay, it's probably like if nobody has already done it, it might be not worth it. So don't be afraid of showing the competition. And basically, I would say that's my Zanes approach. Be honest and realistic. Like it for me, again, going back to authenticity, in a long run, it works better. Think also if you compete with something outside of your direct industry. To give you an idea, we have a portfolio company, Video CV from Estonia. They are providing a solution for recruiters where you can hire people through video interviews that are kind of pre-recorded. So instead of a CV, you actually send over answers to questions in the recruitment process. And usually the founder says, well, we're competing with the mindset, because people are just not used to doing that. they think that you need to send the CV. And I was like, that's actually such a cool. Of course, he still analyzes the tools and what's happening in the market and so on. But I was like, yeah. And a lot of startups, they might be competing with Google, they might be competing with Amazon, you might be competing with Excel spreadsheets, you might be competing with a paper and pen in some industries that are very high, kind of like archaic and so on. And overall, my advice again would be avoid the rule like we are amazing, everybody else sucks. It might be that your competitor has an extremely cool feature, but you are creating you are targeting a slightly different audience to whom that feature might not be that important. It's fine. It's fine that that competitor exists. That's okay. You just have to explain what is your differentiation. Some examples. So if we go back, so this is the Gartner's Magic Quadrant. For those of you who are looking for some slang, I didn't know it either. That's okay. You can live without this knowledge. So basically, the bottom line is that you have two axes, and then you usually put logos on these axes. Usually, all of the startups would end up on the, for me, right upper corner. So they're quite, I would say quite useless, but what can be good here is what you say in the voiceover. So how do you explain your differentiation? And also it's a question, what do you put on the axis? I will have to apologize to this company who has done it. Thank God you can't guess who it is. It's one of our cyber startups. It's also a bad example how to do it because first of all, the axes are really unclear. Secondly, you would expect the arrow to go up, not down. And then also you can see how bad the logo screenshots or whatever bad logo files look on a dark background. Don't do this. And my advice is simple: use white background because then even if you take a random screenshot from a Google search or download a like bad quality logo, it will look fine. You will very rarely find other companies' logos and with this transparent background to put it on a dark background. Alrighty, this disclaimer, this slide is from an email deck, so something that would be sent, not presented, therefore it has a lot of information. But if you look at it, it's actually pretty cool. This is another of our portfolio companies from Estonia, Adact, and they have already instantly put quite a lot of content into this. Instead of these checkboxes that you often see in the competition slides, for those of you who have seen startup pitches, they instantly give you an idea, for example, the timing, how they work in advertising campaigns, and basically how to gamify them. And here they have already instantly indicated a lot of deeper layer than just checkboxes. So I personally like this approach quite a lot because you can read kind of what's the value proposition. So clearly one of the value propositions is time, because they indicate that they can do it in 30 minutes. They could have put just, fast and put green checkbox, but then it would be like meh. But when you actually see, okay, 3 days versus 30 minutes, I kind of get it. Or also for example, the HTML versus, I assume it's JavaScript, that they support both. Again, like you can instantly see it. So in that sense, it's a good example. This is another startup from our portfolio, GoRamp. They are in logistics, and actually I find this very interesting approach to the competitive landscape, because they're actually educating the audience at the same time, because they have grouped their competition under particular categories. And what is good about this kind of approach is that if you go the extra mile and educate your audience, it also proves that you know your shit. And I think that's very important in the early days. Remember, early stage investors invest in the team, and not only the personality type or skill set, but also the understanding of the market and the industry is very, very important. So this is a way how to show it. I'm gonna again stop sharing because I see some things dropping in the chat. Yep. Gartner's diagram. That was a question about the format. We'll come back to it. Give me a second. Sharing back. Tick. Yeah.
Gartner's. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I was referring to this. So the quadrant is the one where you would have two axes, and then you group kind of the competition. So it's this style. And Power Grid, I actually don't have it here as an example, but it would be similar to this one, but instead of text, there would be usually green, like checkboxes, like, for example, I don't know, time to create launch campaigns below 1 day, and it would be and green checkbox. Sorry, somehow haven't added that one. But again, like, you have to choose your own style. I sometimes find these, especially this style, a little bit of like a bullshit show. But I think what is important, if you can explain and educate a little bit, you can, for example, say, okay, there is very complex solutions, there's very simple solutions, and we are competing in the simple solutions kind of area. So you have to be careful of how you design it and what you say on top of it. But this is already like you can go a lot deeper there. I doubt that majority of you are need to worry about it too much. Another very, very technical part. I will not pretend that I'm a huge expert on this, but basically, if you're pitching to the investors, you have to show how their money is going to grow. So what is the market potential for your idea and your business? You might see, for those of you who are learning today, various startup slang, there's so-called tam-sam-som bubbles. So that's this thing. If you see startup pitches and then they show you 3 bubbles, then they're talking about this. And it is actually, this startup here has included, so they're talking about total addressable market, serviceable market, and I actually don't see what's another one. So basically, it just shows how big the startup can grow. And if you're talking to investors, that's kind of where their interest is. They want to give you a little bit of money and get a lot of money back. However, I myself am a fan of a little bit different approach. I'll show you another example. And I think it is important to also show relatable and realistic goals. Like, you might be also talking about, for example, this is a Latvian company, Oricon. They're working in construction industry, and they, for example, say, okay, there's 52 companies that could be using our services, and depending on what is their monetization, it might actually be a very big market. It could be also extremely small market. It depends. Here you have to play with the numbers that you have. It would be important that at least in the voiceover you indicate at least something how you're going to reach this. Also, I personally, I call it the bullshit bingo, when you hear every second startup saying that the market is huge, there's billions and billions and billions of stuff. Of course, everybody would say that. I would say, just if you can be kind of maybe try to avoid that phrase, because it's really like rings in the ears, because every second person uses that. But yes, but basically, I would. We would have to ask somebody else how to calculate this. This is not my field of expertise, but as again a reminder that the investor has to see how the money is going to grow, how you're going to grow as a company, and that there are enough of clients out there, because you might be building something. Imagine the pepper and the bra pitch. What if there were like 100 women that would be there instead of the billions that they mentioned, but I think it was like 50% of US women were in that category that could be their target, right? It's quite a big difference. So it's clear if there's a lot of the potential customers, then the business should grow. Business model, revenue stream. In a very simple way, you should be explaining where is the money coming from. And especially if you're in early stage and you're just still pitching kind of more an idea that you haven't tested that much, you might be getting this question quite a lot in the Q&A. At least that's one of my questions that I have to ask and ask and ask when I sit in jury. Basically, even if you are not there yet, you should at least have an assumption. How are you going to monetize what you're building? SaaS company, software as a service, the first bullet, those companies usually have a subscription plans. For example, you would pay monthly for some kind of service provided by the startup. However, for example, you saw in the pitches that I was showing, they sometimes say, okay, we're going to take a fee from a transaction, right? So, okay, so it's no subscription. There's actually a fee that is based on transactions. There might be rare in startups, but there might be a project-based pricing. Let's assume that you're doing something that is kind of like very either tailored or very large scale, that you actually would charge it case by case, like a project. There might be, for example, some kind of one-time onboarding fee. If, let's say, you're downloading an app and people are going to pay at that moment €5, right? So there also might be a kind of free usage with something where you upsell through ads or anything. We could go like kind of a lot deeper. This is also based a bit more on the business to business format, not business to consumer. However, just remember to explain where is the money coming from or where you think it will be coming from, because often here it's tricky. I'm almost there, almost there. Very important part of the pitch, if the business is already rolling, so if there's already something happening, is to prove and show some numbers about the business. If you're already selling your product or services to the audience, the best way, of course, is to use financial numbers. And it can come in different formats. You can talk about our favorite metric, Startup Wise Guys, is MRR, so monthly recurring revenue. So it is the regular monthly revenue coming in the company, which shows, like you might have, for example, high annual revenue, but it might not be constant. So monthly one is a better metric. Some startups opt for month-over-month growth, which shows the growth pattern. Often, that's my assumption, that they might do it because maybe the numbers are not that high, but the growth is good. So that's something you could also see quite a lot. If you, let's say you don't yet have the fancy financial metrics to show, still do not shy away from showing at least something. I really advise it, especially in the early stage, dig up something that proves that people actually want what you're building. And it can, again, be different things. It could be something that's related to users or app downloads or something like that. Some startups even say early on, I don't know, we have 2,000 people registered to receive the first beta version of the whatever alpha, whichever version of the to test. You might have, let's say you are selling to a very complex clients, very large scale, like very expensive projects. You might want to list the existing clients. You could say, okay, we already work with 2 banks and we have 5 in the pipeline. Maybe you're not there yet, but you're running a pilot project with a very reputable partner. Whenever you're using any other company's logos, please remember to check with these companies if you can actually use, if you can refer to them publicly. We have had issues with this, that startups have not checked it, and we have actually afterwards, for example, been asked to remove YouTube recordings of pitches and things like that. Just be sensitive, because that's what you don't want to do, especially if it's a large brand or large company. They might have a trademark. Usually they do, and if you use their logo, you actually might get into trouble. And you might even have just beta testers. So, and if you can have a short testimonial from a satisfied client, even better. That's something that I see very underused. So if you have happy customers, then why not talk about them? This is one example from one of our fintech startups. They have actually put together 2 things for slides that you would have a voiceover. I would cut it in 2 slides because it's quite visually cluttered, as you can see, but they're talking about the traction. So they're indicating their monthly recurring revenue with the growth pattern, and also they're referring to the banks that they already work with. And as anyone coming from our region, seeing the top 2 would be like, okay, legit, if they already work with the SEB and Swedbank. Then you might want to talk about the status and what's next. And I think this is specifically important, again, in an early stage. You might not have such a fancy numbers or something to kind of show off, but you can talk about future. You can talk about where you're going at, what are your assumptions, and what do you see ahead of you. It can be quite powerful too. If you remember earlier on, I mentioned roadmap as a visual format that I really like because it shows well the journey. So for anything that this is where we are and this is where we're going, roadmap would be my go-to visual representation of it. And you can take as a base for it, for example, financial assumptions. You can talk about geographic expansion, for example, which markets you're going to. You can show the technical side, for example, how the product is going to develop, like when do you plan to launch what, to test what, in which markets. You could also, some startups talk about the roadmap in terms of fundraising. I personally don't like it. I like more that you talk about the business and then fundraising comes along as a logical step instead of just focusing, okay, money, money, money. but depends, of course. Yeah, and it could also come in just as simply as a phrase that you aim to reach certain goal within a certain time frame. Here's an example from ZTCP. I was showing you other slides before, and for example, they are showing you kind of like a mix of things in one, maybe again too visually cluttered for my taste, but they are showing you, for example, the evolution in terms of finances, but also in terms of markets that they want to go to. They never, I know they came, I wonder if they came to Riga or they didn't. There was a change in their plans. This is another one, again, super simple slide. It wouldn't probably win the best slide of the year competition, but still it quite clearly explains the path mostly related to geographic expansion. And actually, this is a bit kind of a sneaky way to go, but I really love it. This is one of our Ukrainian startups that created their goal as also a mix of their goal and a vision. They're working in pharma industry. They're helping attract the right people kind of for the tests of the of clinical trials, and basically they said that their goal would be that there would be 0 incurable diseases in future. Also, like, I mean, take it to the next level, right? Instead of just saying one goal, you can actually communicate vision. And then my favorite slide, I guess, of them all is the slide about the team. And again, reminder, team is very important. And a few tricks. I would always opt for a photo where all of the team is seen together, if you can possibly do it. Nowadays, we have so many remote teams, so it actually becomes a whole challenge of its own. But I would always try to opt for it instead of the bubbles, like the profile pictures from LinkedIn. And secondly, it is important to show, my kids are saying that there's time to eat. That's a great indication that I need to stop talking soon. I will. Then definitely it's important to show that you have complementary skills and experience in the founding team. There is different jokes about the hustler, the hacker, and so on. So basically, you have to make sure that you have the technical side covered, you have the business side, the sales side covered, and also the company management side, ideally covered at least in the early days. If you're going into B2C, so if you're going to be selling to regular customers, so regular people on the street, early on, you probably need a marketing person in the team, so like CMO or somebody. So it's important to show that you have it covered, either in terms of roles or in terms of expertise. If you have worked already together before, let's say your childhood friends, not always the best thing to tell an investor, but still, actually, it's good to show that you have worked together, you have gone through difficulties together. I didn't find the image, but for example, one of our startups was showing a picture how the co-founders are running a marathon together, and they showed the marathon finishing image. And I was like, okay, if you can run a marathon together side by side with your co-founder, I'm sure you can do a lot of things. Then we had an Australian team that had kangaroos instead of the teammates. And then he's like, and he was a jokester, so he was using that quite a lot. So it's like it's the place where you can show both the experience together, but you can also stay very human and use fun. This is the Ukrainian team I was telling you about. It's actually, the guys are amazing right now. They're still working on their startup, but they're also created a support supply chain, and we're donating, for example, for them to buy trucks for ambulances. So they're doing quite a lot for their country, and they stayed in Ukraine, and they're fighting to make it to help people there. And I like this slide for 2 reasons. One is just a really cool picture with the guys with the surfboard, and they're smiling. So that's definitely something I would remember. But also it's nice that under each of the persons, they have only put one kind of like highlight. And I see a lot of startups listing all, like half of their CV in a slide, like graduated this school, previously worked there and there. Like nobody cares, literally nobody can read it anyway. It is very important to put your focus and emphasis on something. And definitely if somebody from your team has experience in that particular industry or niche where you're working, that's a very big positive sign, and definitely emphasize it. Also, I've noticed a lot of people lose a lot of time on the team slide. Also, be aware, like I know, again, you could talk for hours probably how amazing your co-founders are. I hope they are. Try be aware not to kind of like spend too much time. And the last thing at the end of the pitch and the end of the deck, I do advise to think what you're going to ask the audience. And as I said before, it can come again in different form, and you could ask different things. And this probably should correlate with the goal that you have when you're pitching. The no-brainer, of course, for startups usually is to ask for money, but it might be that you're not fundraising in that particular moment. If you remember Hive's second pitch, he said, we're not fundraising right now, but we're looking for introductions into particular with particular type of companies and these these correction station owners. So you might be looking for connections and intros. That's okay. Say it. If the audience has listened to you, they might actually be willing to help you. You might just want some feedback or some advice or kind of just to talk with people. You might be hiring. Quite a lot of startups actually pitch because they're hiring people and they need to attract quite a lot of like volume of people. Make sure to ask something. I haven't included it here. Sometimes people ask, okay, but what should be the last slide? Where should I finish it off? Usually the typical thing is to have a slide where you have contact information, or you might have like some QR code if you want people to download an app. You might have some kind of special offer for today, 30% off, whatever. If you're like the salesy type, go for it. What you can also have on the last slide, apart from the contact information or something that is like not clickable necessarily, but something you can interact with, you could also remind about, let's say, if you started the pitch with some kind of higher level vision, you could remind the vision, and therefore you would have like a circle of this like a structure of your pitch. Also, you could use a kind of 3 things to remember. For example, Sigvards from Castprint, the one with this red cast, would always remind, and it's breathable, durable, and something waterproof. So you'd always do it at the end, and if people, even if you didn't manage to hook them too well in the beginning, then end of the pitch is your other opportunity to leave a good aftertaste. So use it. It's not a sexy way to finish with this kind of like reminder, but I do find it very practical. I think it depends on your style. You might also kind of like, let's change the world. Like the Hive was like, okay, you want to be part of this future, reach out to me. So remember to put some ask. Also remember to put your contact details and remind about your company and your own name, because I liked what you were mentioning in the chat before with the examples that you would want to Google the company, but you don't know their name. By the end of the pitch, you are way more likely to be interested if you were hooked. I see Paul's yawning, so it's like time. No, you are not. It's like I have you as one of the few things. Recap from my side. So reminder, the pitch is just only a door opener for a follow-up conversation. So it's not let me tell you everything. You should know your audience and the goal that you want to achieve, and therefore adapt accordingly. Definitely think, like you can even think of a pitch as an essay. There has to be an internal logic in it. So you have to explain the problem, the audience, the solution. And also, if you remember the skeleton of the 3-minute pitch, so there was a problem, solution, action. So it should kind of follow, there should be a logic so people don't get derailed when they're trying to follow your pattern of thought. And if you are competing, then figure out your winning strategy and know which card are you trying to use in this pitching environment. Yeah, so this is a quick one if you're just starting, a few practical steps. So definitely play with the ideation and brainstorm and figure out your way how you can prepare the best. For example, I personally like to sketch on a paper and I try to kind of draw a little bit of like a storyboard, how I'll be telling the story and what kind of slides I need. Some startups prefer to really write a proper text script and then develop everything from there. Try to look for like, okay, what kind of images I'm going to be using for slides, what's going to be the sequence. I personally really dislike fully pre-written scripts because I think that they're road to disaster to forget stuff. But of course, on the other hand, while you're training, maybe that's the safe place to go, at least as part of the process. However, I would advise you to rather remember high-level messages or thoughts per slide rather than a perfectly written script, because a written language is usually way more complex than our spoken language. Next step might be quite a no-brainer, but still you might want to collect material. I'm mostly talking about slides here. So you might want to collect the material that you will be putting on the slides. For example, get the stuff that you can how you're going to show the product, be it some kind of screenshots, mock-ups, videos, whatever. You might want to build some visualizations for very complex slides. If you want to use any testimonials or quotes, then you need those ones. And also remember GDPR. If you're operating in Europe, that's also very important the moment you're actually showing human faces and their names. If you're so when you're building the slides, ideally you should use kind of branded slide template, but if you're too early and you don't have it, I usually advise to opt for very, very clean slides, actually not using any kind of like pre-made templates. White slides and actually black slides are really cool. Black slides supposedly are better on screens. Actually, they are less that's how I hear, but I guess it depends what kind of colors you use on top of them. Once you put text on the slides, definitely check for grammar and typos. It is extremely annoying to see a large slide projected on a large screen with a huge typo there in the header, and people who are sensitive to it will just not listen to you. Definitely check the storyline, logic, and consistency throughout. So make sure that there is this logic from kind of one part of your pitch to the next one. And again, remember about saying no. A pitch is just a movie trailer, so drop anything that doesn't add value. Like it has to go. And once you already have both the storyline, the voiceover, and the slides ready, well, rehearse and iterate. So that's the important part. Definitely practice, practice, practice. Even for those who, like me, think that they're good speakers, practice is, you need it. And that's the part when you get stressy or where some kind of disruptions happen. This is what is going to save you. When we teach our startups to pitch, we have one session that is, we always try to do it on site, even in these modern online times. And we sometimes switch off the light, or we create some kind of noise in the background just to see kind of like what happens. And people who have practiced well usually can deal with that disruption way better than the ones who are like, oh, I'm good anyway, I'm going to improvise. Definitely try to also practice with an audience. Also just to check if the story is kind of coming across. Can people relate to your examples? Is the vocabulary okay? Are you maybe using too much of slang or too little? And definitely take feedback and iterate and practice even more. And this is one of my favorite gifts. I have taken this sentence from one of our pitch coaches, Ginny from UK, and she said, "The practice doesn't make you perfect; it makes it permanent." So if you're making bad stuff with a lot of practice to perfection, you're just doing more bad stuff. So definitely iterate, change. Pitch should be a live thing. It actually should change over time. And last thing from me. 4 books. So I've read them all, and I would suggest all of them, but each for a different thing. Made to Stick is a amazing book actually for anyone, not even if you need to pitch, but if you need to sell your ideas. I think it even works maybe better if you're a boss and you need to convince your employees, but of course it also helps in fundraising or pitching. TED Talks, no-brainer, but it talks a lot about the narrative and a lot of what's the core message. And I actually, when I was reading it, I was laughing to myself because I had come to a similar thought on my own. I just hadn't phrased it so well. And I was reading this book, I was like, yes, but definitely very, very good, a very good book. Slideology is a bit already outdated, but it's basically like a Bible for people who are crazy about slides, even though this book is also extremely overwhelming, because if you followed all of the advice, you would be preparing one slide deck at least, I think, for like 2 months at least. There's a lot of like cool things about how perception, how people perceive the slides, where the eye movement happens, how to visualize data and stuff like that. So if you're like slide freak, then it's a great book. If not, then probably not for you. But the last one, Never Split the Difference, is something I would really highly advise to anyone, especially because the book reads extremely well. You might actually know Chris Voss. He's also part of, I think he's giving this masterclass series. He's a former FBI hostage negotiator. and half of the book is his examples from real life. But overall, it is a book about negotiations, and when negotiations means human lives, when you can't say, well, you give me half of the body and you keep the other half, right? Really, really valuable. Even changed my negotiations with my kids. So applicability is everywhere. A very enjoyable book just to read. I think I read it in like 2 days just because it was so cool. Okay, that's it. Let's rock and roll. We'll stop screen share. I see we have lost a few people, but that's fine. Cool. Sabine is saying, thank you very much. It was useful. Unfortunately, you really need to go. Yes. Bye, Sabine. You're not here anymore. David, thank you. I see. Okay. Yeah, bring it on. Janis, is that a question? Best way to measure slide performance and what to change if something doesn't perform? I guess it was a question. Basically, I would say you can just, you wanted to comment? I hear someone unmuting or?
Yeah, that was the question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're asking it almost like in a scientific way. I would say that, well, first, if you, for example, if you practice with somebody like if you're preparing for a speech, not the slides to be sent, you can kind of just check the reaction while you're doing it. Usually when people don't understand, they do this, right? So that's the first indicator, especially if you're in a Zoom call, you can really like see it. So first read the body language, then just ask for feedback. For example, sometimes startups, when they're preparing pitch deck, they would reach out to me and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this slide. I think it makes sense, but I'm not sure if people who don't understand my business do. So it's more about the comprehension. If you're talking about kind of what converts or what sells, I think there was a very good comment today, I forgot for whom, but still about kind of read the audience and read the room. Different things will sell to different people. And I think that's the beauty. Well, it's a very philosophical answer to your question. If you, for me, for example, a good movie is if it has a lot of layers. It's a movie where you can deep dive, and it's a movie where you can kind of stay on a shallower level and so on. And I think kind of the same is for a good pitch, that there should be, like, it should be prepared both for a super expert, but also for somebody you just want to kind of like hook the audience. And you might have, for example, a slide that is super data driven, let's say traction metrics about how the company is doing. But at the same time, you might, for example, have the, okay, zero incurable diseases, we're changing the world, very kind of visionary. There are some investors that are purely looking into, okay, will this startup disrupt the world? So they want to see some like crazy, like innovative, like really ambitious, like a lot of balls in the game, right? So that's one style. You might have somebody who is extremely conservative investor that needs to see that this thing can grow 100x, I don't know, more x, right? That he just needs to see that your numbers are in order, there's month by month growth, the MRR is decent, there seems to be the right size of team and so on. So there is no one answer to that. You have, and I think as the trick is actually to ask people feedback. I really like, I saw this one movie, I can't find it back on YouTube. There was this guy in the US who made a months-long experiment, if I'm not mistaken, of doing weird things where people would be inclined to say no. For example, asking for a burger patty refill in a burger eating places, or asking random strangers for 100 euros on the street, just like that. And he said that the reason why he was doing it was not only because he wanted to get used to receiving no as an answer, but he said the trick is to ask why. And he said that the answer to this why question really surprised him, because once, for example, somebody to whom he asked money said, I just don't have it. I would have given it to you. And if he didn't ask, he wouldn't know. So gathering feedback, especially if you get in a conversation with, let's say you have pitched to an investor, but the investor is friendly. That's a really cool thing to say. Hey, where would you see me kind of improving? What would sell better to you? Kind of like, what would you change? Was this understandable? Feedback. And also I would advise you to really use the Startup School of Schools platform. I see it a lot at the accelerator, that you can help each other. Especially in the early days, you actually don't need fancy feedback. You just need a human being on the other side that understands a little bit of the tech world to tell you, hey, does this make sense or it doesn't? I hope that answered somewhat to your question, Jans.
Yeah, thanks. That was really a lot, much more than I expected.
Cool. Okay, cool. I'm really over time. I hope Pulse is not going to kill me for extra 25 minutes. It's showing okay. I wanted to ask, as the last thing, because I still see 23 people here. Maybe some of you feel brave enough. Maybe we can switch off the recording, Pulse. I always ask to just share what's going to be one takeaway you're going to take from today. I would be really, really curious to hear some of you.
If I switch off the recording, then I need to give the outro, sort of.
Want to do the outro?
It will be odd, but if they're okay with sharing it in the recording, then I think that's okay as well.
Let's do it. David, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just really appreciate your comment about the competition. You know, don't be afraid to say that the competition is out there, and the reasons you gave for that, because that whenever I'm thinking about, oh geez, you know, should I really say something about the competition? It always sort of like makes me scared. But the way that you explained why you shouldn't be scared about putting the competition was it's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
There was a lot of useful information. I really enjoyed it, but the most I enjoyed the hook, because the hook and the 3 minutes, we shouldn't tell everything about our product. That was for me the problem in the first startup school at the beginning. So hopefully it will be much improved this time. And I will, because of you. Thank you very much.
Yay. Looking forward to that. I'll see if I can make it to the final presentations, but if not, I'm going to send my colleague to look at you. Let's do our movie trailer. Exactly. Anybody else? I guess we're like reaching the end of our brain power. I wanted to say thank you for sticking with me for so long, and also you've been actually amazing, an active audience. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your comments and activity, especially with the examples. It doesn't happen always, so keep up the spirit, and definitely help each other to build the great movie trailers. And I see still some good input coming. Not to spend a lot on team. Funny, yeah. It's like people always spend time in that one, and not always needed. Cool, Pauls. I guess I give you the floor over to you, and thank you everyone for listening. It was great spending these 2.5 hours with you.
Okay, thank you so much, Zana, for being here with us this evening and sharing all the knowledge and experience and the examples, the good ones and maybe not the best ones, but they all have a purpose for why you needed to see them. And yeah, of course, thanks to everyone who attended here this evening or who is watching the recording later on. I hope that the information shared here will be valuable to you. I definitely would suggest maybe even watching the recording once again. I will share the slides. I will share them tomorrow together with the recording, so you will be able to go over both the slides and even the recording itself. And as for next week, if we're talking about the team, the next week we will have a session on building up a team. We will have 2 very experienced lecturers, both talking from their own sort of perspective. And yeah, that's going to be the topic for the next week. So once again, thank you, Zana, for being here with us. Thanks to everyone who participated and who's watching the recording, and see you next week. Have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.